Hey, this is John with Scottsdale Living, between two cacti, which is I love.
Yeah, cacti are a little easier to come by than ferns.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we just ran down to Old Town and got them. But introduce yourself. You guys are with ListenUp. You just got a brand new app coming out. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll kind of get into that.
Okay, my name's Irina and Igor and
I am Igor Ilyinsky.
we're co-founders of ListenUp, and it is a new app that is coming out. There's several apps that are coming out before the ListenUp app, and it is the first audio app that tells you about where you are, wherever you are.
Right.
And it is going to be translated into 22 different languages.
It's crazy. I love
It's
it.
amazing, and it's all done through, well, not all, a lot of it's done through artificial intelligence, and Igor can definitely fill you in. He is the developer.
Sure.
We came up with this idea traveling with our family, with our kids.
So I read a little bit about that. You guys were in France? Is it
Italy,
right?
yeah.
Italy.
In
It was
Italy,
right
okay.
before COVID.
Yeah.
It was. We went for Thanksgiving. It was the first time actually taking our teenage daughters overseas like that versus like going on a vacation, you know, Mexico, Jamaica and stuff. We took them to Italy, wanted to explore, and I booked all the tours in advance. I tried to be so organized.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it.
So we got to Rome and I organized the tour and paid for it. And of course the tour starts at 8 a.m. It starts a mile from where our hotel is, and we missed it.
Oh, wow. Bummer.
Jet lag, teenage daughters.
Yep.
Yeah, they don't mix. I didn't realize that. This is we're trying to figure it out and get them out there. So we ended up downloading a few apps that day. We started walking around by 2 a.m. We went back to the hotel room. So unfortunately, that kind of started repeating itself because of the jet lag and the time change. We were in Florence. I booked another tour. What was I thinking? Lost that money again. Missed out on that chance to do that. So downloaded some more apps, paid for those apps. And then once we got to Venice, Igor decided, I am not going to wait for you guys.
No
Doing
more
my own
book
tour.
tours.
Yeah.
Girls getting ready and the whole thing. And he's like, I'm going to leave right now. It's like 6 a.m. I'm going to leave. And you guys call me when you're ready.
Sure.
So I'm like, here's all the apps.
I love it.
Download them.
So this is kind of provide an immersive experience, right? So you're in Phoenix. I mean, let's talk about the Super Bowl. So the Super Bowl's coming up. You're in Phoenix. You got ListenUp on your phone. Walk me through that experience. What does that look like?
Yeah, well, basically, I mean, our goal is to really make it the app that tells you about where you are, wherever you are. So, ultimately that means wherever globally.
Sure.
But initially, because we have the Super Bowl coming to Phoenix, and we have not just the Super Bowl, but the TPC Open, we have Barrett Jackson, Arabian
And this is our home.
Yeah.
So we're like, let's launch it here. Let's put Phoenix on the map, global map, with technology.
So since we have this global lens actually coming and, looking at us, and there's a lot going on, as you know, in the Phoenix region in terms of technology and growth from the announcement from.
So you're getting your semiconductors from right off the 17th.
We're gonna just kind of go pick them up in the Jeep and throw them in the back. We're gonna buy them off the guy outside of the factory,
always the best deal,
off the truck. It's we're actually not in the hardware game, at least not right now. But absolutely. This is a place that a lot of people have trouble reconciling how we can be growing so fast and have advanced technology developing here when traditionally it's all been in Silicon Valley.
Sure.
But what people don't realize is that through the pandemic, a lot of Silicon Valley moved here. And this is a better people and companies, and this is a better place to do business in some ways. So ultimately, Phoenix is just amazing from the perspective of, and we didn't get into the backstory of why we moved here and when, but it was kind of on a whim. We were here for 5 days and just fell in love. But ultimately, you have the topography, right? You have the beautiful natural landscape all over Arizona. It's, in my opinion, the most beautiful state, natural wonders. And then you have the history. You have the melding of various different cultures. We have the largest concentration of Native American tribes. We have large swaths of land that you can explore. So we have that, but we also have history. We have architecture. Frank Lloyd Wright came here because he saw a blank canvas and said, wow, right? So we have the makings of all of the things that make a place interesting, including arts and culture, and these are all different areas that people take interest in, and as they walk around, we want them to have a personal tour guide in their ear telling them about what everything is. But ultimately that all comes from the community to begin with, to share that information, and that's what we're primarily focused on right now.
So as crazy as it seems, right, that prior to you guys releasing this app, there really is nothing like it. I mean, so you can get the backpacker's guide or whatever, stuff like that, which is going to be outdated, and all those other things.
Sure.
Your regional apps and the tour guide kind of stuff, right? But there isn't anything, to just put it all together. Unless I'm wrong.
There's nothing where it'll tell you exactly. I mean, you can start anywhere. You just walk out your door of your hotel room and just start walking around Old Town, and it'll tell you about the history, the hotels, the little shops, just all this information right in your ear.
So
it knows
where does it come from? where
Great
do you
question.
Get the information from?
Yeah.
Excellent question.
We have this crystal ball, and we just look into it.
Is it the 8-ball?
The 8-ball. We shake it, and then it gives us all the answers. No, obviously, a lot of this information is online, right? So we'll start with basic web research scraping. We built AI bots to go out there and find things on social media and everywhere else. If people are interested in sharing it, that means that there's an audience for it. The main thing that we're doing is really taking that and facilitating the methods that you would utilize to transcribe it from text into speech so that you can hear it while you're walking around or driving or biking or whatever, rather than having to read it or see it visually. And the other thing that we're doing is taking that text and converting it into 22 languages so that there isn't a need for you to be a native speaker or you to understand or be able to read the signs. And we take both of those things and build tools for humans to be able to make those stories more interesting, better, and deploy them to an app that anyone can download for free.
And so you also have, if I understand correctly, individuals can contribute to the app. Is that with their own story?
We hope they contribute. We need the community. Everybody's got a story. Whether it's your grandparents got married at the church on the corner, we want to hear that story. Or,
cool.
you used to walk with your mom to this ice cream shop that used to be here, at the Sugar Bowl, and you have these stories. We want to hear those stories.
Love the Sugar Bowl, by the way.
Right?
Yeah,
like, you want to hear these stories. And they're rich stories, and they make you appreciate where you are. They make you take pride in the neighborhood, the community. Everybody's got a story, and we want to hear those stories, and we want to share those stories.
So simplified a little bit, like you walk into the Smithsonian or you walk into the Louvre or something like that, they give you the little box, you plug it in, you got the headphones on. So this is a real similar experience, right?
It's the museum experience in the real world.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So, and with your own earpods, the thing is, you can bike, drive, walk, and it will actually change the content that you're listening to depending on what your mode of transportation is. And you don't have to do anything. All you do is turn it on, put it in your purse, throw it in the back pocket in your pants, and it will know exactly where you are, and it'll start playing. If there's content in a certain location, it will just start telling you about it.
That's fantastic. So how long has this journey been going on? I mean, you had
40 some years.
In some ways, it's since both of our childhoods. I mean, we both came to America as Soviet refugees. I was born in Ukraine, so coming to the United States, you're in a place where you don't speak the language, you don't know the local culture, and that's probably the biggest impediment to climbing the social ladder. It's just I don't know where to go and what to do and
it's a lot. It's overwhelming. It's too much.
So from some perspective, that gives us the reasoning to be able to do this and to build, I guess, forms our opinion of how we would build a product like this. But ultimately, the concept came into play, I think, when we were in Italy a couple years ago. But we really just started focusing hardcore on this, I'd say 5 or 6 months ago.
Wow.
Here's the thing, over COVID, I mean, yes, November we were there, we got back here in December, Italy shut down right after we got back. And once everything else shut down in March, he had a little bit more free time on his hands, less pick up and drop off with kids and sports, things like that. And he started diving into, there's got to be a better way than it was the way we traveled. I mean, he was literally standing there with all these apps going, this is ridiculous. I can't get the information. This particular building is nowhere to be found. So he's looking at his phone, Google Maps, Wikipedia.
Photos or whatever.
In Venice.
And the whole thing.
In Venice. That is not, you want that information just to come to you.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's when he came back and he's like, you know what, I've got some free time, let me start doing this. So he started diving into all the technology that went behind it. And about 6 months ago is when I jumped on board as well, full time. And I said, I want this product because we were traveling. We've been using this ourselves because it's a beta app. We've had it for a while.
So you guys are playing with it now?
Yeah, so
we've been using it for over a year ourselves.
I do this from time to time. I'll just build stuff, right? I just hack stuff together.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we'll use it and we'll see how we like it. And we've been using it through the pandemic and small trips here and there. We'd go to Telluride and use it.
Huntington Beach, wherever we were traveling, we're like I'm like, can you add content here?
Yeah.
He's developing it, creating content.
So who's the tech back? You have a tech background? Okay.
Yeah. So I've been coding since early childhood. I mean, both of our parents, her dad and my mom, when we came to the United States, they didn't have degrees from U.S. institutions, so it's not like you could go out and get a professional job. But what they could do was learn computer programming, and didn't require knowing English very well. So they both became mainframe programmers. And, both worked for some pretty big corporations.
I ended up getting a management information systems degree with School of Business, and technology is something I understood, but that's not what I wanted to focus on. It was more of the management and communication between the developers and the salespeople in the business. So it was kind of a marriage made in heaven.
And by contrast, I love code.
So it was perfect.
If I don't get to code or engineer something on a regular basis, I start to get antsy.
Right, totally. So I mean, it's and I don't want to minimize it, and I don't mean this in a minimal way. It's easy to build as far as you know what you're doing, you know how to code, you know how to do it. But to bring that idea to fruition and actually get it out there, right? I mean, that's the hurdle that stops 99% of the people.
It's a massive undertaking. I mean, the people generally underestimate, and even people like me, technologists, engineers, the way we see things is, okay, there are a certain number of steps you have to take before something is completed. And then within those, there may be, some percentage that aren't well defined, meaning you may run into some issue that you weren't aware of. And people are constantly like, Elon Musk, why does he say this is going to come out in a year when it doesn't come out for 3 or 4 years?
The truck.
Well, the Cybertruck. I've got mine on order. But ultimately, it's because he's thinking, well, these are the things we need to do, and if he had 100 people like him, they could accomplish that goal. But there's only one, right? So there are all these things that you need to accomplish, especially if you're trying to build a business that will potentially one day be global, or potentially one day, touch millions of people. Then you really need to be, there's a ton of work that goes on there. Yeah,
absolutely. And then even once you have the viable project or product, actually getting people to use it, to engage with it, right? To getting that word out there.
Yeah, I mean, especially right now, there is just so much noise in the business space and in the technology space that it's hard to even sift through it to know what's real and what's not. But yeah, does it help an engineer? Absolutely. It gives me sort of a view into the future that most people can't have, because they're kind of like playing Steven Spielberg, this is what things could look like, but how much of that is actually feasible, how much of it is possible based on what we know about physics and material sciences, right? But ultimately, people who can really comprehend these things can really see the roadmap, and it's exciting.
Totally.
But
it's gonna be a little terrifying.
It is terrifying
when you know too much about it.
Yeah, it's terrifying only because you know that because people are involved and people are unpredictable. And I shouldn't say unpredictable. People are very predictable. We can predict that a certain number of them are going to be megalomaniacs and they're going to come into power.
Sure.
We can predict that they're going to act certain ways or believe certain things. Like, people are very easy to convince. You can, if one megalomaniac can convince millions of people or an entire country that another group of people are their enemy, then it obviously these things are scary, but it's only scary because people are so in some ways gullible. So why it's scary is because artificial intelligence is bringing us to a place where we can create these things on the fly. We can instantly say,
you're creating content basically on the fly, right?
But ultimately, the things, the conversations we have, and like even this podcast is something that, some spider is going to come through and analyze to determine,
who should see this, where should it show up,
right?
Absolutely.
And they may even take parts of it and compile something that isn't even true, isn't factual or didn't happen. Take my words and splice them together in a way where I appear to be presenting something in a way that it doesn't exist. So that's a little bit scary, but that's why we're in this space is because we believe that in order to stop those kinds of things from happening, you have to show that technology can be used responsibly and to help people. And ultimately, if you do that and people see that there's more value in that than tricking people or trying to convince them of things that aren't true or conspiracy theories, then ultimately you have the ability to level the playing field.
Well, so crazy concept, bring value, right? Bring real value.
Bring real value,
exactly.
Which nowadays again is hard to quantify because we have like all this social media. A lot of it is visual, right? Like YouTube and TikTok and Facebook.
Look how good they look.
Everything's
about that.
And what we love about what we're doing is that it's not visual. It's purely audible. So number one, when you hear something without seeing it, you use your imagination, right? You start to envision it for yourself, and you're actually using your brain. I would much rather my kids use their brains than scroll, doom scroll through TikTok. But the other thing is that you're actually learning. You're actually absorbing things, and you're creating connections. And one of our prior businesses was a small cafe in Chicago, and we realized how hard it was to run a small business and to promote a small business. Especially because your only channels for doing so are, massive scale, like newspapers, which spread over a whole city.
You're doing the spray and pray approach, you're throwing money out there and just hoping somebody comes in. So that's the one thing with our app. The biggest deal was for us to support local businesses, and we want to be able to. The advertising is how we monetize on this app.
Great, because I was going to go into that. It's like, because we talked to a lot of small businesses on Scottsdale Living for sure. So kind of walk me through the monetization. How do you see that working?
Okay, so hyper-local advertising is what our goal is. And literally, you are focusing and you're paying for the people that are within a block or two of where you are.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And the thing is, we're not looking at just advertising. We want the stories behind these businesses.
Of course,
So, for example, Rolling Rock Boutique, they provided us with information about her story, why she decided to even open up the store.
How she got there, the whole deal.
Like her story, and it hits home. You're walking down the street. It's extremely inspiring. You want to go in there and patronize her store. You want to buy a funky, cute T-shirt. You want to, because you feel connection.
Right.
And we want this all over the world like this. These small mom and pop shops are the ones that are truly leading the world with.
So, talk me through, and I don't know how far you guys got into this, but there's an unlimited amount of content that could come to this. Where do you draw the line? What becomes not worthwhile, and how do you vet that? Because if you have contributors or whatever, how are you going to vet all of that information and also determine whether, hey, you just didn't make the cut because it's kind of boring? mean, or whatever, you know?
Why don't you?
Well, yeah. I mean, the reality is we're already dealing with this every day using algorithms in social media, right? This has this many likes. This has this many, whatever, thumbs up.
Sure.
Ultimately, we use those same kinds of mechanisms, even if the stories are coming purely from computers, purely from artificial intelligence. One person hears it and they can say, oh, well, this isn't that interesting, or something about this is off, or, there's, it's politically motivated, or it's, insulting in some way, or inciting violence, or it's, sexually.
The user interface, there is a user interface, and it does have the thumbs up, thumbs down regarding the content itself.
Okay. So you'll use that
in the beginning. It only takes a couple of people to truly change which way this content is going to go.
Sure.
So after you have, maybe 2, 3, 4 people touch some content, at that point it gets to a point where someone had the opportunity to review it, and it either gets buried or it gets improved, right? And improved is really where we're going. That's what we really want to do, is have these stories improved. So if somebody tells half a story, well, someone else can come in and say, oh, well, I grew up in that neighborhood, I know exactly what happened, right? And so that's how stories get developed and evolve. And once it evolves to a point where 3 or 4 or 5 people have touched it, it's useful for thousands of people.
Absolutely, yeah. So obviously that's going to be some type of algorithm, but there's going to be a human touch on that as well.
So community, essentially, we are. One thing that we didn't really get into here is how we're building and operating this business, and it's very different from what a typical corporation might look like. And I don't know if it's maybe beyond the scope of this talk to get into
give us the high level overview.
Well, the high level overview is that I'm a technologist, so I look at things from the perspective of problems, and these are the best solutions for them. The problem is that you have companies that are structured as traditional corporations. They have executive leadership like C-suites, and then they have boards of directors, right? So you have potentially 5 to 10, maybe sometimes 20 individuals who are making high level and even low level decisions that impact how many people. Facebook has millions, hundreds of millions of users, right? Any one of these platforms have all these users and this very small centralized group of people who happen to mostly be white older males are making decisions on behalf of everyone. And those people can be in different countries, and their cultures may be completely different than ours, yet the decisions are made in Palo Alto or something, right? Absolutely. So ultimately, from a structural perspective, there's an issue with that. Then there's an issue with the way contributors are compensated. So you can be a contributor to TikTok or YouTube, and you can potentially even earn a little bit of income.
Fund,
but who decides how much that is? And who's incentivized to make that revenue split? And over time, as YouTube grows and these other technologies grow, they figure out ways to take more and more of the creator's cut.
It's absolutely not transparent, right?
Right. Yeah. So there's an issue with that. So the solutions to a lot of these challenges are in new technologies like blockchain. Blockchain gives us the ability to exchange value without an intermediary. So we'll use blockchain technologies. We use an organizational structure called the DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization, which allows us to create essentially like an endowment that the community can oversee. It doesn't have to be centralized. It doesn't have to be something that has a CEO or a C-suite, or it could be as diverse as the community itself. So we use a lot of these elements to incorporate into our business structure, and this is, in many ways brand new. I mean,
well, yeah, you're revolutionizing not only what you're bringing to the table with ListenUp, but obviously the structure, the way you're doing it, and the compensation down the line and everything else.
Correct.
That's
well, we're currently compensating. We've got contributors, people in Nigeria right now.
Oh, wow.
they're not physically here in Arizona.
Sure.
But they are scraping the internet, they are getting content, they are adding this content, and they're getting paid right now.
Sure.
Through cryptocurrency.
Oh, wow, that is amazing.
Where their government's not taking their money right now, they're actually able to use this for buying milk and bread for their families.
Sure.
And that's crucial. This is what we want for ListenUp and the community.
That's crazy, right? So that's a lot on your plate.
There's a lot.
There's a lot.
So right now, today, I mean, is it just the two of you running this whole show?
Well, it's the two of us plus our community of 200 and
advisors,
20-something contributors.
On Discord, we've got 200 advisors. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, the people who we have on our, we're the type of individuals, having been in business for, 20, 30 years, however long it's been, when we need something, we reach out to the
experts,
the,
people that are good in their field. We're not amazing at everything. We know others are, and we want to take that knowledge from them. We believe
we're not shy, and we're not shy to ask for help, because ultimately our virtues are good. Our end goals are, to help society. So people have a hard time saying no to us. And Irina can be pretty persistent.
Sure.
So for example, I was I figured one of the technologies that's coming out in the near future that's going to be, I think, pretty revolutionary is augmented reality. Right? And right now, over 100 companies are working on augmented reality glasses, so that you can walk around and see things. Contact lenses, right? Some kind of visual device, right? So
just on a quick side note, do you think that got pushed a little too fast, like with Meta and?
So I'll get into that in a second. Yeah. I'm leading up to that. So essentially, there are two very distinct technologies, and people like to bundle them together. They say VR, AR, right? They're not the same thing. This is, in many ways, it's kind of like, listening to a radio or seeing a band live, right? These are not the same things. One is very offset from your natural environment. That's virtual reality, because you put on a headset and everything you see, your entire field of view, is digitized. Not just digitized, but it's virtual. It's created. Whereas augmented reality is a technology where you're overlaying or superimposing visuals onto the existing world, onto your actual tactile environment, which means that you can put something on top of a table and it can walk around, and that's immersed in my
one yet.
maybe not, but ultimately, VR, I think, was pushed very quickly. When billionaire like Mark Zuckerberg sees a technology very early on that seems to be impressive, at least to his nerdy mind, he's thinking, okay, we got to get this out to everyone.
Right.
And so he has the resources to really push that as a in terms of publicity, to get the attention for it. But the problem is that publicity can go much faster than technology.
Right.
And so basically, we're not at the point where technology is advanced far enough for us to really make virtual reality a realistic thing. But augmented reality, in my opinion, is a technology we should be spending a lot more time on. Virtual reality does have some use cases, mostly around gaming, or maybe in some ways entertainment. Personally, I hate it. I get a headache every time I put on a VR headset. I can wear one for maybe 5 minutes at a museum or something, and then I'm just like, get me out of here, right? Whereas augmenting what I see in the natural world is a much more interesting technology to me. So when I became interested in this, I reached out to a guy named Louis Rosenberg. He essentially created the first augmented reality devices for in research projects. I think it was at Stanford, and ultimately, told him what we were looking to do, and he was like, "This is awesome. This is what the future holds." So maybe in 3 years or 5 years from now, we're gonna have AR headsets or glasses or some sort of augmented reality device that we can use in conjunction with ListenUp so that you can maybe see things occasionally, right?
Sure. So, ListenUp is the platform, is the audio for that future AR.
Yeah, totally.
So yes, we are the app today that you can use to, wherever you are, information about it. But in the future, you're going to be listening to the platform that we've created when the augmented reality glasses are out there.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's absolutely mind-blowing. Yeah, but I mean, so that's a crazy amount for the two of you to handle on a daily basis. So I mean, is this taking over life? I mean, what's how are you handling that? Because that's a lot of stress, obviously, and then it's just a lot of work, right?
I love it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, I think
we've always been working.
Yeah. Totally.
We've always been working. Immigrant kids. Sure. Parents taught us we work for everything. Mm-hmm. It's one of those things where our family is getting involved, meaning our children, our teenagers. Mm-hmm. I need one of them to start really teaching me about TikTok. But I'm like, do you want to take over my social media? But yeah, no, we've worked together in the past. Sure. I mean, not only we've been together for 21 years, we've been able to be successful with other businesses. And I took a break and was a stay-at-home mom for quite a while and came back 110% right now because this is amazing.
But let's
amazing
be clear,
industry.
our successes are built on failures.
Yeah,
right?
Of course.
So
completely.
It's not, I mean, that cafe that we,
it was quite the learning
it was,
experience.
Burned down like a ton of bricks, basically.
I mean, I was a real estate broker for 13 years in downtown Chicago.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So with a company called App Properties, now they're App Properties, Sotheby's. You work 24/7. I know your industry really well.
Totally.
You work so hard. You work 24/7.
That's the hardest part.
You really do. Yeah.
So it
we
just
wanted
becomes
to actually
part of life, I think.
It
does. It's just
it is what it is.
Yeah. It is
wanted
what
to
it
mention
so
actually.
What's the? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I wanted to talk about the real estate aspect. That I know your industry. I mean, it was.
Oh, I'll look to advertising there for sure.
Well, here's the thing.
Houses for sale.
Here's the thing. We have this whole new way of using this. I mean, as being married to a real estate broker for 13 years, you live it and breathe it as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So, being a tour guide is kind of how I looked at it for a while there. When people are coming to visit the city, they're not sure if they're going to want to move here. They're just on vacation. So people coming to Scottsdale, this app is not only going to be used for the tourist stuff, the historic stuff. It will also be used for areas that have residential neighborhoods, not just downtowns and things like that. So, for example, you've got how many people coming here to Scottsdale for the Super Bowl, for all those events?
Yeah, so tell me about DC Ranch and the pools.
They're going to be driving around, and a realtor who is an expert in a certain neighborhood is able to basically take ownership, I guess, whether
become
using
the thought leader or the the source of
like this information was given to you by John,
totally. No, I love it.
For certain areas, and you can't be in a million places at once,
right?
But this can. So while you're working with your clients in a different location, you've already told your other clients, hey, why don't you drive around this area, just listen to this, and it'll tell you while you're driving around the school district, the architecture, the what's for sale. We directly go into the MLS.
Sure.
You know exactly what's oops, that one's under contract now, real time.
That's
so
crazy.
right?
Yeah,
so,
I mean, it's like you can, obviously not every area, especially in the Phoenix region, is something that has a historic background or some major story to tell. But I mean, people are going to be coming here and they're staying in Airbnbs, right? The hotels can't
tell me about this neighborhood.
Tell me about the neighborhood,
so,
exactly.
And they may fall in love with it like we did, or when they're coming here, they might not know the neighborhood. So it's like, do you want to be in Gilbert or do you want to be in DC Ranch?
Right.
Well, I don't know any realtor that would be happy about doing tours of both in the same day, especially. But it's like,
as a realtor, you kind of have to explore everything with people till you till you realize what they love and where they want to go.
Well, I mean, for ListenUp, I love the hyper-local advertising ability, right? Because, I mean, if you can truly tie in and get those, whether partnerships are with the NFL or, with Barrett Jackson and the people coming in like that, you can really tie those businesses in, because otherwise people aren't going to know. I mean, rather than going to Preston Steakhouse, they're going to go to Ruth Chris because they've heard the name Ruth Chris.
Right.
So introduce them to the local and give the opportunity there. That's just freaking, that's amazing. It's really cool.
Yeah, but that's the thing, is that there's no limit to what kind of information you can give, right? So it's like, if somebody's interest is commercial real estate, right? Like you can tell them about, the app can tell them about that. Like,
well, here's the thing, the app curates.
Do you know the history of this building? Do you know anything about it?
Yeah, I just know the prior tenant, so that's about it. Yeah,
okay.
But the long history I don't.
Okay, so
let's do it.
we'll see what ListenUp has to say about this building here.
Oh, let's find. Hopefully, it's not something creepy.
54 Brown, the single-story grey building on this corner underwent a remodern in February of 2014. According to municipal records, the remodel supplements the original concrete masonry and brick walls with 4-foot-long, high-density fiber cement boards in 3 alternating colors. Other improvements include the addition of a planter and new windows. The original windows on the 4th Avenue side of the building were topped with wood shingles, so those were replaced with whatever cement boards were left over from the Brown Street frontage. What do you think of the new look?
Wow, dude, that's pretty cool.
So,
I love that.
That's you know.
Didn't you just add that content in the car before we got here?
So let's talk about that voice. That voice is fantastic. Where's that coming from?
Yeah,
I mean, it's an
AI. Artificial intelligence.
It's AI. You know, the amazing thing is that we're using Amazon Web Services for most of our infrastructure right now. So this is just one of the voices provided through their system. There are probably 10 or so voices for English. There are a number of voices in different languages. But yeah, some of them have cute accents. Like, I mean, this one I love using for real estate because it feels like Robin Leach, right? It's like lifestyles of the rich and famous.
So we were up in Sedona and we were doing our hike in Sedona, and I wanted a little meditation session up on one of the hikes, Cathedral Rock, and he changed. It was, what was the voice that we used? It was
Aditi is her name. She's an Indian.
It was soothing. It was right.
She
so
tells you about the chakras.
We change up the voices, right? We change up the voices so it doesn't become monotonous. Like after a while, you start tuning it out. You don't want to tune it out. You have to. You know, I want the Australian accent. You want the English, British, exactly.
Yeah, totally.
But it's your interest, right? So if you're interested in architecture, we want to tell you about architecture. If you're interested in the history of the neighborhood, or you know who grew up there, what famous people lived there, or what the fashion styles are. That's what we want to give you.
As the more you use the app, it gets to know what your likes and dislikes are.
So it's going to feature
similar to Spotify. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Slowly, I want to get.
We are on Spotify.
There you go.
There you go.
You want to know about more food? It's going to start curating to tell you more about that. Where we could be walking in the same area, and he's getting history about music and the bands that used to play at these places, or
I'm a musician,
and I am learning about the history of the grandmother's Italian sauce from generations and generations. Yeah. And then eventually, I mean, we've got grand plans. Walking around and having your children listen to their version of. We're looking at a huge, gorgeous mural in downtown Phoenix. We're learning about the history or whatever, and the kids are doing like a Where's Waldo. They're looking for counting how many arms the Swallow has.
Yeah, totally. That is so
And
cool.
having the same experience, and you just walk outside your door and start listening to this. You don't have to meet somebody at a certain location at a certain time.
So what's the single biggest hurdle today?
Time.
Community.
Community.
Getting the community involved. That is huge for us. So today's kind of a huge day for us. So it's kind of exciting. This morning, about 2 hours ago, I got a text message from you. I was just getting ready for this podcast, and he sends me, he's like, Apple just approved.
Love it.
Our tour record. So we have a suite of tools.
Right.
So
Tour Record is one of those tools, and it's out there today.
So ListenUp is a platform, right?
Sure.
Which is intended for people to use to hear stories about where they are, wherever they are. But those stories have to come from somewhere.
Right.
So a lot of it may come from artificial intelligence, but others will come from people who want to tell their story.
Sure.
So we're building all of these different tools for storytelling, one of which is Tour Record, which we for example, just used it last week with Marshall Shore, the hip historian.
Mm-hmm.
He gave us a tour of downtown Phoenix, and we were able to record that tour. We were able to add photographs, and it records our location so that we can then take that information and put it into the ListenUp platform. Or one of our, we can adjust some of the content, we can transcribe it from speech into text. So we're using technology to facilitate all of these things, but to make it as simple as possible for somebody to just walk around a neighborhood. Any realtor or person who grew up in the neighborhood, just hit the record button, walk around, talk about it, take some photos, and upload it to the system, and we'll get it into ListenUp. So that's what we need right now, is just people to go to their app stores,
Tour Record.
Go to Tour Record. It's one word. And
that's on the App Store?
On the App Store
today, as of today.
2 hours ago.
As of 2 hours
that's
ago.
Your product, right?
That's one of the
our
products.
Okay, fantastic.
And I would say it's a community product, right? So the way we're building things is not like, oh, we built it, we own it, we're the proprietors here. It's not like we're trying to really, hold people's information or take control of it. What we want is to enable